Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a nice menu effect where the menu scrolls in from the top of the page as your user scrolls down the page. So I've got one pre-made here, so let's just have a quick look at how this works in the browser. So Control Shift or Command Shift and E to preview in the browser. And you can see that we've got this background image here. We've got a navigation menu already in place with some hover states already set to it. And what happens is as the user scrolls down the page, that menu scrolls up off the top of the page, but just as it goes off the page, another menu scrolls down and comes into its place and stays then fixed at the top of the page. So it's a really nice effect where you have a menu to start with, and as people scroll, your users scroll, it gets replaced by a different kind of navigation menu that scrolls in and fixes itself to the top of the page. Okay, so let's have a look at how this is done in Muse. So what I'm going to do is just go to Plan. I'm just going to create a new page, and let's just call it Home 2. So it's our second one, and here we go. Here's our blank page. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just zoom out a bit. So Control minus, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle that goes across the top. So this rectangle is going to hold my image. So I'm going to have an image that goes across the top of the page. So I've drawn a rectangle. It's got no fill at the moment, but here if I click the fill options, I can add an image, and in this case I'm going to add in my minions image, and then I'm going to get that to scale to fill, and I'm going to get it so it centers in there as well. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at that for the moment. So when I do Command Shift and E, there's my page, and as I scroll, the image just goes off, or tries to go off the top of the page. I'm just going to do a Command Q. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to stretch out my page. So I'm just going to have a nice long page here as well. So again, if we do Command Shift and E and just have a quick look at that, as I scroll down, that image just disappears off the top of the page. I'm going to show you a nice little effect here. Because we place this image inside a rectangle, I can now select that rectangle, go back to the fill option, but put this scroll feature on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that I want to scroll that when the page scrolls, the image doesn't scroll. So the image stays fixed in place, but the page still scrolls. So to do that, I need to set this value to 0, and I need to set the final motion to 0 as well. I'll explain later on what initial and final motions mean, and I'm going to set this value to 0 as well. So I'm just setting all of these to 0 under this scroll section for this rectangle. So now that we've done that, let's do Command Shift and E, and let's have a look at how this works now. So now when I scroll, the image stays fixed. It doesn't scroll with the page. In other words, it doesn't go off the top of the screen, but the rest of the page content that's below the image would then just scroll over the top of the image. And that's a nice kind of parallax effect, if you like. So that's that nice simple effect there done. Next thing we need to do is we need to build some navigation menus. So I'm going to go to the widgets library, and I'm going to create a horizontal navigation menu. And I don't want it based on any of my top level pages. I'm going to make it manually. So in it comes, and I know that I'm going to want 6 navigation buttons. So I'm just going to click on here until I've got 6 navigation buttons. I'm going to click the navigation menu and just drag it out so it goes across the top of the page. There we go, and I'm just going to want to close that down. Might just make it a little bit thinner as well. Okay, I'm going to come in and give these a name. So I'm going to have home for the first one, and then rides, tours, hotels, location, and finally a contact one. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the text as well is I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Now you could play around with the formatting and the colour of the text. In fact, I think I might change the colour of the text as well. So I might come here, use my eyedropper tool, and I might pick up a blue colour down here that's on the minions down there. So I'm just setting up that text colour. Now I actually want to set up the navigation buttons themselves. So I'm going to select one individual button, come over to the states panel window, and I'm going to set the state here. So actually I want the fill colour to be, I want it to be white, but I want it to be on the normal state. I want the fill to actually be down to around about 50%. So somewhere around about there, 50% is where I want the fill color to be. And I'm also going to add in a border radius effect as well. So I'm going to come in here and just increase that up to 100, so that I get really rounded kind of buttons. When I come to my rollover states, I don't want it to be this color. I want it to be white, and I want it to be solid. So I'm going to put it all the way back up to 100%, and then we can just set that for the mouse down as well. So again, if we go for white and then fill, I want it to be 100%, that's okay. And then on the active state as well, I want it to be white, and I want it to be up to 100%. So all I want it to be is on the normal state, I want it to be sort of semi-transparent, and then when we hover over, it's going to come into a solid white color. So shall we just have a quick look at how that is? So Command Shift and E, and now you can see my transparency that I've got there. You can see the blue text that I've picked up, and then as I hover over, you get this kind of rollover effect going on your navigation buttons. And we've still got that sort of scroll effect going on there, and the navigation menu goes off the top of the screen as well. Okay, so far that's good. Okay, so here we're going to draw another rectangle out. So I'm going to draw a rectangle that's going to go all the way across the screen, and as I do that, it goes to 100% width. So it will always be 100% width of whatever the screen size is. With that rectangle, I'm going to fill it with a white background, and this is going to be like our secondary navigation menu. I'm also going to add another field to it. So I've got a white background field, but I'm going to add an image, and I'm going to add the minions again into that, but this time I want it to scale to fit. So it will shrink the minions down so that they fit in. I don't want it over there on the left hand side, I want it in the middle, so it sits in the center like that. So it's like a little logo inside our navigation menu. Okay, so now that we've got that in place, let's just have a look at what happens now when we do Command Shift and E to preview in a browser. So there's our bar, and as we scroll, it all just disappears off the top of the page. So that's not quite what we want. So what I need to do now is I need to click on that bar, and I need to come over to my scroll effects panel window. And if you can't see that over here on the right hand side, you need to go to the window menu to open it. Now on the scroll effects, I do want a motion effect. Now I want the menu to come in from the top, so I need to set this so that the menu drops in from the top of the screen. If we leave it on this one, then it will be there in place when we go to preview it. Putting it here puts it off the screen. I want it to move, so I want it to come in as the user scrolls. So I'm going to put this value here to 1. Final motion, I don't want it to move at all. So the final motion is what happens once the menu comes into place. What happens to it then? Once it's in place, final motion means you could have it fly off the screen again if you wanted to. We're not. We're going to get it so it comes into place. It's going to scroll into place. Once it gets into place, it's going to stay fixed in place. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is to tell it when it's going to come in and stay fixed in place. And I really want that to be at the top. So I'm going to set this little position here of where I want the key position to be at the top of the menu. So you have this little bar here that allows you to set when the motion is going to take place. Well, I want the motion to take place right at the top of the menu. Now you can either use this sort of bar, drag it up and down and place where you want the key motion to be, or you can come over here and actually use this to position it as well. So now let's have a look at what happens when we do Command Shift and E. So now we don't see that bar at all, and that's because it's up off the top of the screen. And when we scroll down, when we get to the point where we set the motion bar, then it comes and slides into place. So we set that motion bar to be at the top of the rectangle. So when we scroll our page and get to that top position of the rectangle, the white rectangle, it then scrolls in to place. And once it scrolls in, it doesn't move any further because we set the scroll effect, its final destination, to be 0. In other words, once it gets into place, it stops and fixes itself in place. Okay, so that's looking quite good. The only thing we've got here is that once that navigation menu goes off, it takes a while for the new one to come into place. So to do that, I'm just going to move this bar up a bit. So it's a little bit of trial and error, so I'm just going to play around. Command Shift and E to preview in a browser again. So what I'm looking for is as that just disappears, the new one comes in place, and it's still just a little bit off. So let's just drag it up a little bit more, and then Command Shift and E. Okay, so now as those buttons just disappear, the new menu look comes in, and that's perfect. That is just what we want. Look, as those buttons disappear, the new one will come in. All we've got to do is put the new navigation menu inside of here, and that's nice and simple. Because we've already got one, we can just copy it. So I'm going to do Command Shift or Control Shift, click on my rectangle, Command V, and there goes my navigation menu. So I'm just going to place that into the middle. Let me get rid of this panel window. Okay, now because it's on a white background, I need to go back in and set the states. So here I actually don't want any kind of fill. So I don't want there to be any kind of effect going on with these navigation buttons. I want it to be, because it's on a white background, I don't need a white kind of fill going on. Now the other thing you'll see is that the navigation buttons don't quite fit because I've put this logo in the middle. Well, this really works if you have an even number of buttons, so like 4, 6 or 8. If you have an odd number, then this doesn't work so well. But what you can do is I'm going to click on this button here and add in another button. Now what that does is it creates another button which has got some text on it. All I have to do is go in and remove the text. So I just highlighted it and pressed delete on my keyboard, and I have an empty blank button there, but nobody's going to see it, and it means that the buttons either side are equally spread against this central image. So that's a really neat little trick. Create a fake button, delete the text content, and you have this equal spread. But like I said, it only works if you have an even number of buttons. Okay, so now if we do Command Shift and E in preview in the browser, okay, what you'll see here is the text. Here's our navigation menu. You just about see it. There it is. Look, it's not quite there, so it's not working the way that we wanted it to. And that's because this bar has a scroll effect applied to it, but the navigation menu that is inside the bar doesn't have the scroll effect applied. So I'm going to select the navigation menu, go to scroll effects, and give it exactly the same. I want it to scroll from the top. I want it to come in as 1. By the way, the value of 1 equals the scroll on the page. If I was to put it into 2, then it would come in twice as fast as the user is scrolling. I need to set that to 0. I need to set its point of where it comes in to be the same at the top of the rectangle there. So I'm just going to change that so it's at the top. And final motion, I don't want it to move once it comes into place. So that's the same values as what we set for the rectangle here. So let's just have a look at that again. So it's 10, 109, 00. That's what we've got for the navigation menu. If I click on the rectangle and behind, it should be 1, 109 and 0 again. So let's do a Command Shift and E, and let's see if this works. So now the navigation text you can't see anymore here, and as we scroll down, that disappears and in comes our bar. A really nice effect going on here. Look, for our menu to come in at the top of the page. And like I said, you can have it coming in at different speeds. So if I just select our navigation bar, I could go in here and say that I wanted that to come in at 0.5. So now let's have a look at what that does. So if I do Command Shift and E, as we scroll down, you'll see the bar comes in and the text comes in at different speeds. So what we might do is we might go in here and actually say for our navigation menu that we want it to come in, for example, at 2. It's just a matter of playing and trying with these different elements that we have on the page. So now when I scroll in comes my bar, and then in comes my text afterwards. So my bar drops in and then the text drops in after that. If you want it to come in at exactly the same time, you set the values to be the same. And that's a really nice slide in menu. And of course we've got this image here with this scroll effect applied to it, so that is fixed in place by having a scroll set to 0. So then the rest of my page's content just scrolls up through the page. So really nice effect there. Have a go and see if you can do it.